The high street food illusion. Think about that specific heavy lethargy that hits you about 40 minutes after grabbing a quick high street lunch. That weird artificial thirst that no amount of water seems to quench. Or the way a brown paper bag sitting on your passenger seat leaves a transparent puddle of grease that looks more like industrial engine oil than anything meant for a human stomach. You've probably told yourself it's just a standard post-meal slump that everyone deals with when they're busy. It isn't. It is your body desperately trying to process an engineering project disguised as dinner. In this investigation, you'll find out exactly what happens behind the polished digital kiosks of Britain's biggest high street food chains. I'll show you how corporate cost-cutting and aggressive automation have quietly turned your quick meals into overpriced, slow-motion traps. We'll break down the precise laboratory data linking these modern formulations to severe physiological shifts, expose the systematic degradation of customer reward schemes, and reveal the jaw-dropping hygiene failures that local councils have been quietly logging while you wait in the drive-thru. Most importantly, the most shocking, unexpected operational shift comes near the end of this video, exposing a corporate strategy that completely redefines what you are actually paying for. By the time we finish, you will know more than 90% of shoppers. The chemistry of the fast food machine. Before naming specific brands, we need to understand how the modern fast food machine is actually engineered. Think of a high-quality meal like a finely tuned British sports car. It relies on premium, recognizable components working together naturally. What the corporate kitchen feeds you is the culinary equivalent of a vehicle held together entirely by industrial adhesives, cheap filler panels, and a glossy coat of paint designed to hide the rust. The entire industry relies on a concept known as hyperpalatability, a meticulously calculated ratio of fat, sodium, and refined sugar designed to bypass your brain's natural satiety triggers. It is chemical sleight of hand. They strip out the natural fibers and proteins that tell your stomach it is full, replacing them with moisture-retaining agents and texturizers that make food effortlessly easy to chew and swallow before your brain can even register the calories. The deception does not stop at the chemistry. It is baked directly into the preservation mechanics. In a normal kitchen, food decomposes because it is alive. The corporate fast food ecosystem treats decomposition as a financial liability. To eliminate this risk, ingredients undergo intense ultra-processing, an industrial cycle that strips raw materials down to their basic molecular structures and rebuilds them with emulsifiers, stabilizers, and heavy chemical preservatives. It is the same logic used to manufacture synthetic lubricants or plastic molding. When you consume these heavily altered matrices, your gut microbiome reacts to them not as nutrition, but as foreign entities, triggering low-grade systemic inflammation that manifests as that distinct, foggy exhaustion you feel before the afternoon is even over. High street food giants operate on a high-volume, low-margin framework that behaves more like a logistics warehouse than a restaurant. Every second a piece of food sits under a heat lamp, or every moment a delivery driver spends waiting at a counter, is a direct drain on corporate profit. To counter this, companies rely heavily on hidden cost-cutting maneuvers, replacing skilled kitchen staff with automated assembly systems and digital interfaces. They use legal loopholes to mask ingredient downgrades, swapping out genuine dairy or whole meats for cheaper, highly stable substitutes that can sit in a distribution depot for months without spoiling. Corporations do not just sell you food. They sell you friction reduction. They design apps that track your spending habits, adjust prices dynamically based on your location, and lock the best value behind digital walls to turn a basic human necessity into a data harvesting operation. They spend millions of pounds plastered across British billboards to normalize these habits, making a sticky table, a missing item, or a lukewarm delivery feel like an acceptable tax on modern life. You are not making a conscious choice to eat poorly. You are navigating a carefully constructed labyrinth designed to make walking away feel as difficult as possible. The Hall of Corporate Shame. Let's dive straight into the engine room of high street deception. We begin with a household name that has built its entire modern identity on being the convenient, affordable option for busy British families. Greggs. Owned by its public shareholders and boasting a history that stretches back to delivering bread on a pushbike in Newcastle, this bakery giant now operates nearly 2,500 shops across the UK. People trust it blindly because it feels local, honest, and unpretentious. But if you look closely at what's happening beneath the paper bags, the corporate mask begins to slip. The main accusation here is a quiet, aggressive pivot away from genuine service value toward aggressive price creeping and a total loss of quality consistency. A 2025 consumer analysis tracking high street inflation revealed that while Greg's successfully knocked its main burger-flipping rivals off the top spot for breakfast market share, taking nearly 20% of the entire UK food-to-go morning market, it used that massive leverage to steadily increase the baseline price of its iconic breakfast meal deals. Practically, this manifests as a lukewarm, rubbery texture in your morning bacon roll or a steak bake that features significantly more gravy filler than identifiable meat, leaving you biting into a pocket of scalding, thickened starch rather than a premium bakery product. It's the classic high street bait and switch, lure the public in with a sub-3-pound price point, build a massive habit, and then gradually adjust the formulation and the pricing while hoping nobody notices the pastry is getting fluffier and thinner while the filling gets scarcer. Professor Tim Spector and various nutritional specialists studying ultra-processed foods have frequently pointed out that these heavily manufactured bakery items rely on industrial emulsifiers and dough conditioners to keep their structure under heat lamps, turning a simple breakfast into a chemical science experiment. Verdict Zinger, it's not a traditional local bakery. It's a highly optimized industrial logistics firm that happens to wrap its profits in puff pastry. If you already feel like checking your own kitchen cupboards or rethinking your morning commute, hit that subscribe button right now, because the corporate tactics only get harsher from here. Next up is Five Guys, the American-born burger chain that arrived in London's Covent Garden back in 2013 and has since ballooned to around 160 premium locations across the UK. They present themselves as the transparent, family-owned underdog that cooks everything fresh from scratch using peanut oil and local potatoes. But the reality of sitting down in one of their heavily branded, checkered restaurants is a brutal assault on your wallet. The core issue here is an absolute, unadulterated ripoff hidden behind the guise of premium quality. Journalist investigations into fast food pricing models have repeatedly highlighted that while Five Guys secures hundreds of millions of pounds in fresh financing to expand across the UK, the actual cost per serving is completely decoupled from reality. You are asked to pay nearly £15 for a single burger, a handful of greasy chips thrown loosely into a brown paper bag, and a drink. When you actually sit down to eat it, the bread bun is frequently crushed into a soggy, translucent mush by the heat of the foil wrapping. The grease bleeds straight through the paper sack onto your trousers, and the structural integrity of the entire meal collapses into a messy heap before you're halfway through. Consumer reviews on platforms like Trustpilot are absolutely littered with complaints from regular Brits who feel genuinely robbed, pointing out that for the price of a quick lunch for two at Five Guys, you could easily sit down for a proper, freshly prepared two-course meal at a local independent pub. Chief Executive John Egbert might call their expansion a testament to the brand's strength, but the reality is that they are charging gourmet restaurant prices for what is ultimately an automated assembly line product. Verdict Zinger, it's a fast food burger with a silver service identity crisis and a premium price tag that leaves a horrific aftertaste in your bank account. Moving up the ladder of corporate absurdity, we have to talk about Burger King. Owned globally by Restaurant Brands International and managed through major franchise operators across the UK high street, they have spent years positioning themselves as the edgy, flame-grilled alternative to the Golden Arches, trading on the nostalgic appeal of the Whopper. But underneath that smoke-infused marketing campaign lies a chaotic operational nightmare. The main accusation here is a complete and utter breakdown in basic service delivery and physical product consistency, heavily documented by independent consumer watchdogs like Which. In their annual fast food satisfaction surveys, the consumer experience at a typical British Burger King drive-thru or high street branch is defined by excruciating wait times, order inaccuracy, and food that arrives looking like it was assembled during a minor earthquake. You pull into a stained car park, wait 15 minutes for a simple meal, and when you open the wrapper, you are greeted by a cold, dry patty, a single sad leaf of wilted lettuce, and a complete absence of the sauces you explicitly paid extra for. Real consumer reviews from Asda to Tesco retail park branches consistently describe lukewarm fries that have the texture of damp cardboard and automated drinks dispensers that pump out flat, watery syrup instead of carbonated beverage. It is a premium-priced menu delivered with subterranean levels of care. Verdict Zinger. They call themselves the king, but they're serving up an absolute circus of cold patties and broken promises. Finally, we arrive at the absolute peak of high street food deception. McDonald's UK. Operating roughly 1,450 restaurants across the country, This corporate colossus has woven itself into the very fabric of British daily life. People trust it because it's familiar, because the app offers cheap deals, and because it's the default option when you're tired. But the reality exposed by recent council investigations and corporate data is nothing short of a complete betrayal of that trust. Let's start with the sheer operational decay. In late 2025, environmental health officers from Calderdale Council conducted a routine inspection of the Old Market branch in Halifax and slapped it with a hygiene rating of 0, the lowest possible score a UK food business can receive. The inspection report explicitly noted a total absence of hot water at the hand-washing sinks. This isn't a minor administrative oversight, it is a fundamental breakdown of basic sanitation in a kitchen serving thousands of families daily. Even worse, the restaurant continued to trade right through the peak Christmas period, and the rating wasn't officially restored to a safer score until March 2026. At the exact same time, the corporate machinery is actively punishing customers who refuse to be tracked. From mid-2026, McDonald's officially forced its popular Wrap of the Day deal exclusively onto its smartphone app. If you walk up to a self-service kiosk or a human cashier in a British store and order that exact same wrap, you are charged up to £5.79 instead of the £2.49 app price. A corporate spokesperson confirmed this shift without a single shred of shame. It is a direct financial penalty for any British shopper who values their data privacy and doesn't want an app tracking their location, order history, and spending habits across the high street. Combine this digital trap with their revised loyalty scheme, which recently hiked the baseline reward tier from 500 to 2,000 points, while quietly slashing the expiration date of those points from 12 months down to 6. And you see the systemic mechanics of the deception. They are giving you less, charging you more, and harvesting your data while their physical branches suffer from sticky tables, litter-strewn car parks, and dissolving paper straws that collapse into mush inside a milkshake within 30 seconds of use. All while a 2025 Food Foundation report revealed they spent a staggering £86 million on outdoor billboard advertising across the UK to keep you hooked. Verdict zinger. It is a highly sophisticated data harvesting agency that uses the aroma of processed fries to manipulate the British public into paying premium prices for zero-star hygiene standards. The revolution on your plate, and now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We have waded through the greasy, data-harvesting muck of the corporate high street, but you do not have to starve, and you certainly do not have to accept zero-star hygiene standard garbage. There is a completely different way to do fast food in Britain, run by people who treat your stomach as a biological system rather than a corporate profit dump. The shift from negative to positive starts right here. The clean fast food champions our first alternative is Leon, the high street pioneer that famously set out to establish what they called naturally fast food. Founded in London and now operating across major UK high streets, train stations, and airport terminals. Leon's entire philosophy is the polar opposite of the ultra-processed machine. They don't hide their ingredients behind a wall of industrial codes. Instead, they baseline their entire menu on Mediterranean diet principles. They use fresh, whole ingredients, unrefined oils, and have a massive focus on gut health, offering live probiotic yogurt pots, fermented kombuchas, and gluten-free chicken nuggets made with British poultry. When you dig into an aioli chicken rice box or one of their grilled wraps, the sensory difference is immediate. The chicken actually tastes like seasoned, roasted meat, not an extruded sponge of water-binding phosphates. The grains are fluffy, the herbs are vibrant, and instead of leaving you in a foggy, sodium-induced coma 40 minutes later, you actually feel sustained. Price-wise, let's be entirely transparent. Leon is slightly more expensive than your bottom-tier drive-thru. A solid lunchbox or grilled wrap will set you back anywhere between £6 and £8.99. But when you look at the cost per nutrient, the value is clear. For a couple of quid more than a heavily devalued corporate meal deal, you are getting genuine, unadulterated whole foods. Expert nutritionists, including researchers looking into the benefits of the Mediterranean diet, consistently back this style of eating for long-term cardiovascular health. If you are a busy professional or a student sprinting between lectures who needs clean, genuinely fast fuel without the toxic crash, Leon is your entry-level baseline. The only real downside? Outside of major British cities and travel hubs, finding a branch can still be a bit of a trek. Next up, moving into the undisputed territory of the ultimate high street burger upgrade, is Honest Burgers. Starting life as a tiny, unpretentious tent in Brixton back in 2011, This British success story has grown to dozens of locations across the country by doing something the massive corporations claim is completely impossible: keeping things local, transparent, and strictly fresh. The secret behind Honest Burgers isn't a proprietary chemical flavor enhancer, it's their own dedicated central butchery. While the massive chains use frozen, industrially ground paste shipped from anonymous mega depots, Honest Burgers uses 100% British beef, specifically 35-day dry-aged chuck steak, sourced from reputable domestic farms operating under regenerative protocols. They choose to collaborate with groups like Grassroots Farming to ensure the beef actually restores natural ecosystems rather than destroying them. Furthermore, their legendary rosemary salted chips are hand-cut daily from real potatoes grown on a single dedicated farm in Sussex. Spaghetti Group, a show 3 biting into a classic Honest Burger, is a complete revelation if your palate has been numbed by high street junk. The beef patty is thick, juicy, and structurally sound, cooked with a slight blush of pink in the middle that lets the natural, rich flavor of mature chuck steak lead the show. It isn't buried under a pint of sugary industrial sauce, because the meat itself does the heavy lifting. The bun is soft, but holds its structural integrity against the natural juices, and the rosemary chips are intensely addictive, fluffy on the inside, perfectly crisp on the outside, and seasoned with real herbs rather than industrial sodium dust. Let's look at the price honestly. A burger at Honest Burgers, which automatically includes a generous portion of those legendary chips, sits around the £13 to £15 mark, depending on your location and whether you opt for their monthly special. Yes, that is roughly double the price of a sad, flat corporate cheeseburger meal. But compare it to Five Guys, where you are easily rinsed for 15 to 18 quid for an oily bag of crushed buns and 0 sides included, and Honest Burgers emerges as an absolute bargain. You are paying a fair price for premium British agricultural provenance, elite butchery, and real, transparent kitchen talent. Independent food critics across the UK consistently rate them as the benchmark for what a high street burger should actually be. This option is absolutely ideal for anyone who wants a genuine, high-quality meal out with mates without supporting a corporate data harvesting machine. The only drawback is that because they cook their beef fresh to order, you cannot expect to sprint through a drive-thru window in 60 seconds. You have to give them a few minutes to actually cook your food. The smart shopper's blueprint, taking back control of your plate, does not mean you have to spend your entire weekend cooking or filing away complex chemical charts. It simply requires you to look at high street labels and supermarket shelves with the cold, calculating eye of an investigator rather than the hungry gaze of a tired consumer. To protect your wallet, your data, and your long-term health from the systemic tricks of ultra-processed food giants, you need a firm, non-negotiable set of rules to guide you the next time you are out looking for a quick meal. 7 rules for navigating the British high street. The 5-ingredient rule. If a packaged food item from an aisle in Tesco or Sainsbury's lists more than 5 separate components, or contains words you cannot naturally pronounce, it is an industrial construction, not real food. The app trap rejection. Whenever a high street establishment hides its cheapest prices behind a mandatory smartphone download, they are not discounting the product. They are forcing you to sell your location and data history to subsidize their cost-cutting. Check the water weight. Look at the meat content percentage on prepared foods at Asda or Morrison's. If British beef or chicken makes up less than 85% of the total weight, the remaining volume is a cheap cocktail of chemical water-binding phosphates and starches. The emulsifier red flag. Actively avoid items containing xanthan gum, mono and diglycerides, or carboxymethylcellulose. These are heavy texturizers used by massive corporations to artificially replicate a creamy, thick texture in low-quality fats. Verve Council Hygiene Records. Never trust a polished storefront blindly. Look up the local council's Food Standards Agency rating before walking in, because a gleaming high street digital kiosk can easily mask a 0-star sanitation disaster behind the counter. The sauce and dressing trap. Always check the back of pre-made high street wrap or sandwich sauces. If liquid sugar or fructose syrup sits within the top 3 ingredients, the establishment is using chemical palatability hooks to keep you addicted. Prioritize local traceability. Look for the red tractor logo or specific regional farm declarations on products from M&S or Waitrose. Genuine, unadulterated food has a transparent origin, while corporate rubbish relies on anonymous global supply depots. Modern food conglomerates operate on the exact same psychological architecture as social media companies. They engineer their products to exploit your internal biological triggers. keeping you fundamentally dissatisfied so that you keep chasing the next quick, cheap hit. The modern British food industry is built from the ground up to profit from your convenience and your exhaustingly busy schedule. They have transformed the basic, ancient human act of eating into a highly automated, data-centric corporate logistics operation where quality is a secondary consideration. But by making just one sharp shift in your daily thinking, by viewing your lunch choice as an intentional financial and biological investment rather than an unthinking default habit, you immediately strip these marketing giants of their power. You switch instantly from a passive victim of hyperpalatability into an active, conscious evaluator of real nutrition. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this deep dive into the corporate machinery. If this investigation opened your eyes or made you think twice about what you are feeding yourself or your kids, please share it right now with a mate who relies heavily on those high street drive-thrus every week. Which of these corporate brands or digital app traps is sitting on your smartphone or in your kitchen cupboard right now? Let me know directly in the comments below, and let's start a proper conversation. If you want to see exactly how British supermarkets engineer their own value tiers to manipulate your weekly grocery budget, make sure to click on our deep dive into supermarket premium labels right after this. Stay sharp, stay thoroughly skeptical, and protect your plate.